How are you, Adrian?
Rich, I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
You got it. So let's get right into the Kawhi Leonard of it all, because not only does this potentially affect the draft, but it's entirely possible that certainly a lot of people out here in Los Angeles think that he is the key to opening up the LeBron to Lakers possibility and dream coming true. Let's start with what this is like right now. Where does everything stand with Kawhi Leonard?
Well, I think San Antonio is in no rush to act in any way. I think they'd like to have a conversation with Kawhi Leonard. They would like to, or continue a conversation with him. They may have talked to him the last day or two. I'm not aware that they did or didn't, but I'm just saying, like, their intent was to try to talk to him directly. And, they have him under contract for another year. They can offer him a 5-year, $219 million supermax extension, which is $30 million plus more than anybody else can offer him. And so they're not in a rush. They don't see the draft as a deadline. They don't see free agency in July. I think the real deadline for San Antonio really is the trade deadline in February, when that would be their last chance to trade him before they could lose him for nothing in free agency in July. So if you look at how they handled LaMarcus Aldridge last summer, he made a trade request. They talked it through, kept talking, eventually signed him to an extension. This is different. This isn't the same. But at the same time, their phone's ringing. Teams will make offers. And something, listen, these things can all change in a moment when an offer comes and you say, hey, this might be the best we can get, or this is something we want to work with. But it will be the story of draft night, of free agency. But I wouldn't necessarily expect a resolution or the Spurs to feel like they have to act, because I think they believe, and maybe rightly so, that they've got a little time on their side here.
Well, then let's parse this out a little bit, starting with what's gone wrong. I mean, we all know that Greg Popovich is, to mix metaphors in sports, the Belichick of the NBA, and now we've seen back-to-back off seasons where all-star players say they might not want to be around there anymore, and that's kind of new. What is going on with Popovich, San Antonio, and Kawhi Leonard? Best you can tell us.
Well, there were differences in opinion about an injury and the treatment and rehab of a couple different injuries that he's had over the last couple of years, and that I think that's part of it. I think the people, well, I don't want to say the people around him have changed, but there's a different. I think he had an agent who worked, I think, really well with the Spurs, who he doesn't have anymore. And then I think there's a family member who's taken on a greater role in it. And so that's probably changed the tone of it, of what was maybe a partnership before. And now maybe it's become a little more adversarial. And then, him only playing 9 games last season and then staying away from the team for extended periods, going to the New York, New Jersey area, working, really taking his medical out of the team, where he put his own doctors and a different team at the forefront of his treatment and his rehab. And that's been the case since last summer. So there's a number of issues. And then, I think there was a disconnect with some of his teammates when he was staying away. And, Tony Parker came out and said some things about the injury that Leonard didn't love, and that was part of him staying away from the team. So there's a lot of work to be done to try to repair a relationship, and I think the Spurs would like to do it. I think they don't want to trade him. They don't want to rebuild. They want to keep. They have one of the 2 or 3 best players in the league, and a player who there's very few you can build your team around and say, this guy, you can count him on one hand, and he's one of them, that you can build your team around, and if you put the right pieces around, can be a championship contender. And when you have one, you don't want to give them up. There's no amount of draft picks or long-term plays that typically don't work out. You'd spend all those years trying to find another Kawhi Leonard, and the one they have is only 26 years old. They want to keep him.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.